provided this message does not get stuck in some kind of subspace relay station. This will be Voyager, please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I am Peter, your co-host.
Yes, and I would like to just launch right into the episode this week, my friend. What do you say?
I say let's do it. Season 4, Episode 14, Hunters.
It's Episode 15. Season 4, Episode 15, my friend.
You are right. We're a terrible podcast review.
Yeah, and we are just starting this episode, and we are already in the toilet. Good job.
We've already fucked things up, and we're not even going to edit it and fix it because that's how bad we.
But yeah, the episode this week is a stealth two-parter, I guess is the best way to describe it. It is a direct
two-parter, yeah.
And it's a direct sequel to what we did last week.
Which, let's stop and appreciate that for a moment. We've gone from a show that has been so crazy and episodic that they completely forget what happened, major plot developments that happened to previous episode, to now we've got such strong continuity going on. And it's not only just big overt stuff like the plot we're going to discuss here, but like character development specifically along the 7 of 9 lines, that it's almost like we're watching a completely different show.
Yeah, the continuity train is 100% gaining steam and pulling out of the station. And the fact that this was essentially not just a sequel, but also a callback to stuff that we haven't really talked about extensively since season 1 or the pilot, in some cases, gives the show that feeling that I think we have lamented quite a bit about it missing. And I really liked this. I thought it was extremely well written, which, considering it's Jerry fucking Taylor who wrote it, is all the more astonishing. And a couple kind of misses on a couple acting beats aside, I think it's one of those episodes that a fan of this show specifically, and we've kind of become that by necessity since we watch this every week and talk about it for a fucking hour, you learn to really appreciate.
Since we're cutting to the end and doing our feelings up front, I agree with you. Everything about this episode was good, except for the alien stuff.
Oh, I can't wait. After you broke open the Bane joke last week, I'm like, I just remember thinking to myself, I can't wait. I can't wait until we see these guys again next week.
And now you've got them for like size comparison and the whole giant thing there, and the actor's name is Tiny, which I thought was hilarious. But we've had a couple situations now where there have been pretty cool slice of life episodes. Mortal Coil with Neelix notably coming to mind, and some of the other ones where this is life in Voyager. This is Voyager living in the situation of being stranded in the Delta Quadrant, having to turn into family, yearning for contact with loved ones at home, and that is like the backbone of this episode. But for some reason, we can't just have a nice internal no threat episode of Star Trek Voyager. There always has to be some bad guy out there so you can get a couple phaser fights in with it, and that's where the episode shits the bed. But that's like maybe 20% of the episode, so the rest of it I think is it's easy to forgive that 20% and focus on the good stuff.
The episode begins with some nice space shots as they kind of zero back in on Voyager, as there's a clear transmission that is kind of being sent through the cosmos. They represent it visually, I think, somewhat interestingly through that montage. And as they receive it, it becomes more evident, and then eventually Harry is able to fix the signal, that it is a message from Starfleet Command, and that they are sending that message through the exact same communications relay that Voyager, just the prior episode, sent the Doctor through to have a rip-roaring adventure in multi-vector assault mode with Andy Dick, which sounds like a porno no one would want to watch. Sure enough, they're getting something back from home, and everyone is extremely hype immediately about it.
Did you come up with the episode title for the last episode yet?
I have not.
Can it be the EMH knows Dick?
Yes, Peter, it can. You have my solemn vow.
Oh yeah, so hunters.
Yeah. Back to this one that has less dick in it.
Thankfully, it's a cool opening. I like the garbled transmission. I like the meandering shots. I like the mystery of what the hell exactly is this, and then the realization that it's Starfleet. And for something that basic, communication from Starfleet, it is such another big moment that not only was Voyager able to communicate things to Starfleet, but now Starfleet has gained reach into the Delta Quadrant, and Voyager is starting to get plugged back into the big picture. Really cool. But there's a snag. The Hirogen relay, which they have used to pirate the signal out into the Delta Quadrant, one of the relay stations, it's not working so hot. It's this is the 90s, so I'm sure Starfleet's using real player.
Oh yeah, it's buffering.
The prototype streaming service Real Player to get their pirate signal out there. And one of these Hirogen relay stations, which we will later come to find out, is old AF. They're like 100,000 years old, I think.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It's kind of one of my favorite tropes, but you bringing up Real Player, it reminds me, maybe
Sarah Silverman.
Maybe some of our listeners can remember. Did you ever try and download porn that was on a Real Player file? It's always a trap. It was always a trap. It was never worth the effort trying to get that shit to work. But anyway, this is some shit that the youths just will never understand.
Gosh, if we were a different, maybe I'll save it all for our special podcast where we review the Star Trek porn parody, which thank you everybody who voted at home for giving me what I wanted for Christmas. And that is a reason to watch the Star Trek porn, professionally speaking. I'll save all my dirty porn thoughts for that, but streaming.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably our best opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll save all that stuff. But one of these Hirogen relay stations, it's only got 16 megabytes of RAM. It can't handle the load. And the pirated Federation signal gets caught up in the buffer there. So Voyager makes the decision that they are going to fly out to this particular relay station and try to extract the rest of the message close range.
So we do see a quick scene of the Hirogen themselves having detected the signal and wanting to pursue the ship that is getting it. And that's, of course, where we see the Delta Quadrant equivalent of Discount Bane's The Race really show themselves on camera. As you said, your exact phrasing, I believe, was "You've adapted to the Delta Quadrant. We were born in it."
Yeah,
I kind of sound like the aliens from Aqua Teen Hunger Force there.
The Moonanites.
Yes, the Moonanites.
Our God is a god of vengeance. He's a wolf. No, a wolf.
I have a belt that helps me channel the powers of the supergroup Fauna.
I don't need no instructions to know how to rock. I love Aqua Teen, by the way. So these Hirogen, man, they are, as we're joking around, they're like a mashup between Bane and Reptile from the newer Mortal Kombat games, visually speaking. And I start writing in my notes, bootleg predators, and then I'm watching the rest of the scene. It's like, yeah, they look kind of corny and hokey, but you know what? At least I respect Voyager for trying something different. We've gone on and harped so hard about shitheads, the shithead, base template of the Delta Quadrant, where it is a regular human with some salami, pasted in your hair and maybe a little bit of shit on the bridge of your nose, and now we're going to call that an alien species, if not flat out, a basic human with no discernible different features. So we haven't really seen a super alien looking race since maybe the Boneheads from the Warp Core Ejection Bad Day at Work episode. And then before that, I would probably say the dinosaur people.
I would say that the Nicolas Cage friendly aliens from Year of Hell were cool. They had a neat look to them.
Friendly.
Yeah, like the real friendly guys who showed up like before the Kremen got cool again, and were like, "Yo, guys,
the Zafta or something." I think they were called.
Yeah, the Frank Zappas. Yeah,
but they didn't look really.
They had a cool look to them.
They had a cool look, but they weren't radically different. And that's, these guys. Yeah, they're still humanoids: 2 legs, 2 arms, some fingers, but it's a striking style. It's not something we've seen out of Voyager before. Yeah, they are obviously supposed to look like predators kind of with their Bane masks on, but I respect them for trying, and I appreciate just something different and not more of the same.
Yeah, and it's not exactly Zoobly Zoo.
God. You know what? I put that so far behind me, and here you are dragging it back out, Joe.
The cool thing about the Hirogen are they do a good job of developing them bit by bit, and there's like pieces that are in this episode that come out later, but the thing about them is that they're super obsessed with hunting, and they used to have a really complex civilization, and now they don't.
Okay. That is very interesting to me, because what this episode, and again, the Hirogen are the worst part of the episode, but while they're there, I'm like, man, how do they have such sweet ass old super ancient technology? We find out that they're harnessing black holes to power these things, and now they're just flying around the galaxy doing this bad predator stick where they're throwing spinal cords up into cargo nets and calling it a day.
Yeah, the backstory for the Hirogen are that, this ancient version of themselves had all of this like incredible technology, and it's kind of like this Warhammer 40K feel to it, that they've forgotten how to like do anything with it, because now they're like just super obsessed with hunting all the time. More of it'll come out through the show, but they improve is what I'm saying. They end up using them, I think, in an interesting way. And I do like also, I will give props for one thing, and that is they wanted to portray them as physically superimposing. So they purposefully hired like 7-foot tall actors and then put them in platform boots. So then when we see them like compared to Tuvok and 7 of 9 later, and they're like towering over them, that's not like a digital effect. That's giant dudes towering over the other people in the scene, which, you know what? Respect. You wanted to do it and you went for it. And that's why it actually looked correctly.
It's kind of, in going back to the dinosaur people, the Vogoth, was that what they were called? But whatever. The one and done dinosaur people.
Right.
Which I guess actually had a really big part in some Star Trek Online. Did we talk about that at all?
No.
So Star Trek Online apparently ran a plot hook where those dudes do come back to Earth and are like, hey, this is ours. And there's like a fight or something, which is exactly what I said Chakotay was laying the groundwork for when he was like, oh, you guys are superior.
Oopsies.
But I thought, like, hey, man, if there's ever time to showcase a size difference between like how big aliens can be, it would be fucking dinosaur people. And they didn't, and it sucked. And yeah, again, seeing some dudes that aren't just, maybe 6 feet tall at the most was very refreshing.
So the premise of the episode from this point forward largely centers not on dealing with the Hirogen, as we have alluded to, but the very real tension and hopes and dreams and emotional roller coaster that the crew goes through as they gather this transmission that comes from Starfleet. And what they quickly determine is that the message that has been sent by Starfleet is letters from home. You know, they talk about like maybe it's directions to a stable wormhole, maybe it's like a brand new way to traverse, and there is a suggestion that there's an encrypted piece of the transmission that is from Starfleet Command, has maybe some maps and some other message in it, but they focus in on the fact that these are apparently letters that the loved ones, friends, and family of the Voyager crew has sent them. And it's a huge moment, of course, because this is their first opportunity after going on 4 years of wandering the Delta Quadrant, evading certain death at least once of pay period, that they have the opportunity to hear from the people closest to them that probably until very recently thought that they were dead.
It's a cool payoff for a lot of storylines that we've had pushed at us repeatedly, notably Janeway and her fiance Mark, who I think the last time that he was really featured prominently was the goddamn Q episode,
Persistence of Vision. Yeah.
What?
Well, no, the last time we saw Janeway's fiance on screen was Persistence of Vision, which was like season 1, and she was dealing with like seeing shit, and it was the episode where every other one else has this like dream sequence, like
Terror Q
town.
But in the Q and the Gray specifically, Q and the Gray was the one where Q tries to bang Janeway, and Mark does get featured heavily by name. I don't mean on screen. I mean just heavy reference to them on screen.
That's true. Yeah, Q does talk about him. That is accurate.
And of course, the ever willing Chakotay, who's standing in the sidelines waiting to catch a piece of Janeway, where he picks right back up on that again in this episode, much to my chagrin.
He is so thirsty,
dude.
Oh man, from the moment he finds out that she got a fucking Dear John letter, he's like, hey Kathy, how do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
I guess you don't have the excuse anymore that you can't be involved in anybody anymore, huh?
No monkey to save you now. Remember, I made you a headboard.
A hot tub.
He
made her a hot tub.
Yeah.
But I'm convinced that they took it to Bone Town. That they were there for too long, man. The monkey eventually could not get in the way.
But there has always been, and Janeway will admit it towards the later half of the episode, and so to cover this plot in its entirety, Janeway got her letter. Mark, her old fiance, has moved on and is now married to a coworker and happily ever after. And according to Janeway, there's a finality to the letter that she does not expect she'll be hearing from Mark again. And it hurts, because you start putting hopes and dreams into reconnecting with this person. They're just like, hey, glad to hear you're alive. The end. But as she will admit, having Mark there as an excuse has been a strong crutch for her to play the removed leader, to not really allow any of the opportunities to enjoy herself, to cloud her judgment and play this hard line. With the exception of Vlad Goldblum and the Skeevians, who held her like putty in his hands while he jerked the entire crew around. She has consistently shut people down and held true to her commitment to Mark, and now that has been thrown in the mud and backed over.
That scene where she's talking about the fact she got this Dear John letter is one of several that I felt really elevated the episode, because the subtlety of how it all kind of came out in the conversation, which is, as you said, like Janeway gets the impression like, nah, he's kissing me off on this letter. Like, he sent a letter all the way to the Delta Quadrant to tell me, hey, I'm glad you're alive, but I didn't wait for you, and this is, I'm probably not going to be writing you again.
And I also want to credit Mulgrew her delivery in this scene is good.
Yeah.
You've talked before about she really shines in this melodrama, soap opera stuff, and I wouldn't say it's quite that level of camp, but this is a really powerful delivery by her, and it was really easy to relate to, and I really enjoyed her performance.
It's those close emotional moments. She's a soap opera actor, Ryan's Hope, right? Said it a million times, and when she can get away from the sci-fi element crowding her performance, she obviously can just kind of get into that authentic space she has the most comfort. And she changes as an actress and is able to do more in that space when that happens. Not to say that she can't like lay down the law with other stuff that's a little bit more sci-fi-y or Star Trek-y, but there's a comfort in her performance when she's talking about something like my fiance left me for another woman. Like that's easy to get into. Where is my character at with that? Right.
Yeah.
And she does a good job with that. Another thing that comes up in the letters that is a huge continuity point, which probably came as a surprise to you because you've never watched DS9, is that Chakotay gets a letter. And that letter has bad news in it as well.
This, and let's take a step back. This is a hard episode to talk about because it's a good episode. There's not an A plot of series of events progression. It's a bunch of little different stories happening, and then also a zany alien kidnapping. So that's why we're kind of bouncing around all over the place. But Chakotay's letter knocked me on my ass. I did not see this coming at all, and I was like, holy shit. Because his letter is from basically his old Maquis recruiter telling him that some shit went down, the Cardassians buddied up with this new big deal threat, which is, of course, the Dominion, and that they have wiped the Maquis off of the map in their entirety.
This was a big deal in DS9. The Cardassians joined the Dominion, and like the first thing that Gul Dukat did was he wanted to make Cardassia great again, and he was going to make the Maquis pay for it. And sure enough, in a matter of 3 days, he like rolls in hot with the Jem'Hadar and kills every member of the Maquis, all of them. And obviously that becomes a big emotional thing in DS9. Or some episodes about how the Maquis meet their end in that show. But there's no reason for the Voyager cadre to know anything about that. But they remark later on this show that as a consequence, this is legit. Voyager has on its ship the most surviving members of the Maquis in the galaxy. That's how complete their murder was.
It's crazy. And it's a cool opportunity for the Star Trek universe to affect itself, and even stuff over in the Alpha Quadrant to have an impact on this. And I thought that, so when he finds out, he's stunned, and then he goes and he tells Torres, and Torres has this big emotional meltdown and anger, and she kind of goes through the stages of grief because these are their friends. Like, everybody's sitting around waiting for these letters from home. And we've talked about before, like, if you're Starfleet, you're Federation, you're well adjusted. People don't just join the Maquis because it seems like it's something fun to do, unless you're a fucking lunatic like Lon Suter and you're just looking for an opportunity to kill people, to murder people in the 24th century. Everybody else is,
it's mostly guys. It's like guys like Dolby. I hate the Cardassians because they raped and murdered my wife. So let's go kill them.
I
got beef. I got reasons.
I've never really fit in anywhere. This is my gang. I feel like this is part of my family. I'm committing my life. Like, it's a big fucking deal to find out that this close network of people that you had identified with have been wiped out. So Roxanne Dawson, I think even better than Kate Mulgrew in this, really steps up to the acting plate. And this scene specifically where she flips out, super good. I
felt like she held back a little bit just because she was very pregnant. And I felt like maybe like there was an extra gear she could have gotten into with her anger. but she did it. She did a decent job. I will say
If
that. It
she
wasn't as
was
quite high
full
as Hannah
Klingon,
is.
I would say there could have been an extra gear. I think that her failure to take it to another level was the human part of her grounding her through the experience, and that there was more hurt than rage in even that moment. Um, it was a deep scene. It was a rich scene. It was a great interaction between Chakotay and B'Elanna, and it was also a reminder that there is a crew within the crew. That even though they're all
Yeah,
wearing Starfleet uniforms, there is still this Maquis command structure that is there. And that when she starts getting like all wound up and I want to kill people, I want to do this, and it's like, fuck, man, like we haven't seen this ugly terrorist Maquis angle in a long time, but yep, it's there. And what is this capable of doing? Like when you start getting close, and this is also a reminder that Voyager didn't just it wasn't out on a deep space exploration mission when this happened. Like the Maquis were supposed to be getting apprehended and brought in for crimes against the Federation and its mission, not its mission, but its agreements with Cardassia. You've now contacted home base. What exactly have they shared with them? Obviously, I'm sure they didn't fucking tell Starfleet that Janeway murdered Tuvix, but
probably left that out.
Was part of the report like, hey, by the way, like a ton of crew members died during the caretaker incident, including Roga Dinar, our first. No, Roga Dinar was the what?
Doctor.
He was the doctor.
Rogan Dinar was a doctor.
All these white guys died on the trip out here. We've had to replace them with space terrorists. How Starfleet going to feel about that? And I think the Memory Alpha actually touches on. I wasn't sure if it was cut scenes or just speculation that one of the messages that didn't ever end up getting decrypted was an order from Starfleet that all the Maquis should be put in the brig for the rest of the trip back. But how interesting would that have been if that order was on the table? You're Janeway. There's no way in hell she's going to put those people in the brig. She can't afford to put those people in the brig. That's why she integrated the crew in the first place. And now you're kind of relying on Starfleet to get you home while working in open defiance of direct orders. Like that would have been a pretty rich story to tell. But the destruction of the Maquis was huge, and I really enjoyed all of that.
Yeah, same. Some other notes on this part of the plot, and it's more, I think, useful just to kind of like talk about each character's journey than doing it on a chronological basis. Tuvok gets a letter. It's kind of like an opportunity for him to like play against Neelix about his Vulcanness. We find out he's a grandfather. His oldest son has gotten married and had a kid. It's an interesting, like, he gets a real cool Vulcan moment where, Neelix is like, oh, you should read it right away. Why aren't you going to read it? And he's like, do you think that the content of the message is going to change between when I'm done doing my job and, when I get to read it? Pretty sure it's going to be the same. It's very Vulcan attitude. But ultimately you kind of see him when he's finally alone, stop working and reading the rest of the message, demonstrating, I think, in the right way, like, the way that Vulcans process their emotions, and that obviously he's interested to see, like, oh, all this news about my family.
Speaking of Tuvix, and again, failure to realize greatness, and we continually see Neelix and Tuvok joined at the hip in scenes. The best example is Rise, where Neelix finally gets Tuvok's respect. Here and a handful of other times, Tuvix was a thing. It happened, and we can pretend it didn't all we want Voyager, but there was such a juicy fucking storytelling opportunity in all of these scenes where Tuvok, who is the most proper and stoic and all that other stuff, crewman on the ship, and Neelix, who knows Tuvok better than Tuvok knows himself because they were the same person. Being able to call him out on his shit and say, listen, man, I know you. I know you care about this. Did I read the letter? Hell yeah, I read the letter. I care about your wife. That was my wife, too. I care about your son. That was my son. Like, I'm invested in your shit, man, by like it or not. You embrace these people. Show that you care because I know you care.
I mean, we can rewrite all of these scenes to be better using that logic from now until we finish the show, because you're right, that would be better. For my own sanity, I have to have just given up and say, clearly they're just never going to acknowledge this. It was too batshit. They walked away from it, and I get that what the reason why. You're right though. Like, how much more powerful would these kind of scenes be if it was the awkwardness with which that they have to deal with the fact that they know each other so intimately.
The dynamic that these two oftentimes comedic characters could have in private. You know, obviously Tuvok's comedic value is as a straight man, but like them alone behind closed doors could be completely different than anything resembling them out in public. Then there's the Tom Paris plot line in this, which is Tom don't give a fuck versus Harry, who, Jesus Christ, Harry, shut the fuck up about your parent. Halfway through the episode, I'm sitting there hoping that Harry has not gotten a letter yet because his parents fucking killed themselves out of grief that they lost their son, and there's some tragic shit waiting for him. That's how sick Harry has made me of his family.
So once again, here we are in season 4, and Harry Kim has no reason to exist. His entire character beat in this whole episode, which is otherwise marked with this depth for everyone else, right? Depth for Tom, depth for Tuvok, lots of depth for Janeway and for B'Elanna. But for Harry, it's that he wants to get a letter from his mom because he misses his mom. Because after 4 years, that's all we fucking know. Like, how is he not wanting a letter from his fiance?
They don't have pen and paper in caves where she lived, so right. He knows he won't be getting a letter from her.
We know Harry Kim is a fucking mama's boy. That's it. That's all we know. And so that's all the writers have decided to put into this. It's like, not like, oh, you know, all of my classmates, all these people I were close to. Like, he's fresh out of the academy. There's all these people he spent 4 years with that he's probably close to. Like, you know, here's something they could have done with Harry Kim. Oh, I got letters. They're from my classmates in the academy. Oh, half of them are dead in the goddamn Dominion War. Holy shit, this is terrible. Like, that could have been what happened.
Maybe getting stranded in the Delta Quadrant wasn't such a bad idea after all. Hey, did you know that my second choice for placement after Voyager was the USS I got blowed up in a Dominion conflict? Wow, what are the odds? Harry Kim's best part of this episode, I think, was where he shows up to pester 7 of 9. 7 of 9's been decoding all these transmissions or cleaning it up so she could, you know, turn them into presentable formats for the crew members. He goes down to pester her about where his letter from his mommy is, and instead it's Torres down there. And man, does B'Elanna fucking lay into him about being like, yeah, look, Harry, you know you're hot for her, and just ride him hard on it.
And unfortunately, Garrett Wang is not up to the task of, like, acting to the same level that Roxanne Dawson is. So she's there being just fucking stone cold, laying out all this salt, and he's like, yeah, no, it's fine. She's attractive. Like, he's just so terrible.
I disagree. I thought he was pretty good in that interaction where she's teasing him, and he's like, listen, you know, there was something in the beginning, but it's over now, and all I care about is mommy. But he first serves as a foil to Paris, because whereas Harry is sweating these letters hard, Paris does not give a fuck and spends the majority of his time in his scenes with Harry pondering if what he is eating is corn mush or chicken. And that's bad boy Tom. Bad boy Tom don't give a fuck. bad boy Tom don't care about the Alpha Quadrant because it's just another prison, and he's already been there and done that, and he's happy where it is. And it's, of course, a facade. It's Tom projecting um, what he wants to be versus what he is, and that is someone who is scared of the Alpha Quadrant. And that's what ties him to the Maquis and all this. The Federation sees these letters from home as something warm and wonderful, and I think the Maquis see it as a reminder that they've made some harsh choices in life, that they've got some hurt and some hard decisions, and the closer they get back to the Alpha Quadrant, the less they're going to be a happy, uniform crew and potentially prisoners. And Tom has been able to use his opportunity in the Delta Quadrant to grow and become a better person. And when confronted with what he was back in the Alpha Quadrant, his dad, in his mind, is going to remind him that, hey, Tom, you're a piece of shit. You're a letdown, and you're a disappointment. So he gets into it with B'Elanna, and B'Elanna's like, look, man, at least you got a dad. Like, be happy. Give him a second chance. And he's like, no. And she's like, yes.
Well, it's worth pointing out, because I don't think we mentioned it. The letter that he's getting is from his father, who is Admiral Owen Paris. So Tom is clearly like 100% a was it legacy ad to Starfleet? Gives you a little bit more insight to his very hashtag First World Federation problems perspective that he's laid out there sometimes.
So is this supposed to be the first time that we become aware of the fact that his dad was an admiral? Because I felt like it had already been established earlier.
Yeah, we know he was an admiral, but this is where we get him named, like Admiral Owen Paris. And I'm actually happy to say we get to see him a lot. So, as I've mentioned, in the future, some episodes actually take place in the Alpha Quadrant. And what we're going to find is that they decide that they really want to lean on using him as a character. And I think it really helps bind the show together in a weird way, because, they're using these kind of connections to, like, oh, look, we got to have the character be in charge of this effort to get Voyager home. Well, it probably should be Tom's dad, right? Because he's an admiral.
He's got the juice. So let's use him. Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And what else is really cool is this is one of those rare gems of a episode as of late, where it is Tom and B'Elanna alone in a room doing relationship stuff, and it isn't just making out for cheap sexual, points. And it isn't them having the same fucking tired argument of, you put up walls, let me in. It's like Janeway getting dumped. It's real human stuff going on. It's stuff you can relate to. And it's one of the better applications of their relationship in the greater scope of the show's picture.
Yeah, Stevie said the exact same thing, actually, about that scene. It's like, wow, they make it a kind of this real, identifiable thing that they're dealing with, and it becomes much more mature and relatable.
And it ties into the fact that B'Elanna's like all fucked up because she just found out that all of her dudes just got genocided, and that isn't impressive in and of itself, because there's early seasons or episodes of Voyager where it's like in the A plot, the environmental controls are going crazy and everybody's having to like pull off all their clothes because they're sweating their balls off. And in the B plot, people are just sitting around, playing chess and everything's fine. Like there's no continuity between storylines, and here they weave together super well. So again, credit where credit's due. Jerry Taylor, nice job.
Yeah. I think that wraps up, I think, all of the plot lines when it comes to the letters. Tom doesn't ultimately get his letter. Everybody else kind of does. And, the lesson there is that Tom is trying to get over his fear of hearing from his father, of course. But the B plot, I guess you'll call it, is that Seven of Nine and Tuvok hatch a plan to try and and solidify the message package before it gets destabilized. And to do that, they have to get close to the actual communication array that holds it. And what we find out when Voyager initially gets up close to it is that as you mentioned, this is apparently 100,000 years old, which is that fucking Mass Effect 3 shit that we talked about last week really liking. And two, it's powered by them harnessing a quantum singularity, which is always the most like metal shit. Like, oh, there's a black hole in there. What could possibly go wrong?
I think that the punchline of "it's powered by a black hole" has kind of been dulled for me because, you know, all the Romulan warbirds run on quantum singularities too. But when warbirds blow up, they don't like suck 4 other ships into the event horizon of a black hole and kill them all. Yeah, so these quantum singularities powering these massive relays, they make it hard for big ships to get close. And for them to get close enough to download the information out of the buffers on this relay, they decide that they're going to send out a death cart. In this case, did you catch the shuttlecraft name?
I didn't, but yeah, they send out a death cart.
It's the Cochrane 2. Given the history of the Cochrane one was the ship from Threshold that Tom breaks the warp 10 barrier and turns into a fish.
And possibly fucked his captain in and made
possibly
lizard babies in.
Not
yeah,
possibly.
almost certainly. Yeah, almost certainly.
It happened. There's a first officer's log. It happened. Which one did that blow up in? Whatever, it blew up, but this shows that they're able to fabricate new shuttles, which I think is interesting, and it kind of excuses the 500 shuttles that they've already blown up before, even though Voyager only holds 2. But so they get out there in the shuttlecraft. Seven's kind of butthurt that she has to go out on this mission with Tuvok. She thinks that Janeway is harboring some resentment or does not fully trust her, and that's why she's making her take a partner. Again, this is one of those situations where it's like, if you've got a really tricky navigation thing, like, shouldn't this be Tom flying the shuttle? But they got Tuvok in there. They got 7 and 9, and you know, the last time we had these two people in the same shuttlecraft, 7 beat the shit out of them by hiding in a corner back in Raven, which was enjoyable. But this time it's someone else beating the shit out of them. They get close to the Hirogen relay, and then they get hit with some sort of ion cannon burst, which locks down the ship. They get knocked the fuck out, and they wake up on the floor of one of the worst set pieces that we have seen in Voyager to date.
So it's a super duper generic, I think almost a reuse of the Kmart Klingon ship interior with like netting, and you know, it's kind of just gray and dull. It's got a whole bunch of very plastic bones all over the place. But I will say though, I love that Tuvok and 7 of 9 come to consciousness, apparently tied up in some real fuck me daddy BDSM like restraints.
Yes,
because they are super locked down.
They're hogtied. This set piece, do you remember Qzar, the old laser tag places?
Yeah.
It looks like if you took...
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It looks like if you took a Qzar, drained all the smoke out, and then like one of the Halloween Spirit Halloween stores opened up in there and just like threw a bunch of skeletons around the place. Like that's what it looks like. This thing looks janky as fuck. And that's where the episode really, unfortunately, falls in quality substantially, because you've got all this really good interpersonal storytelling going on, and then you got this hokey ass alien menace. But they wake up on the floor, they're tied up, they're not secured to anything, and they're still alive, oddly. And while they're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, the aforementioned Bane Scorpion Klingon or Bane Scorpion aliens come walking in. And I think ultimately my impression of the Hirogen as an alien race would best be described as Predator's hillbilly cousin. I think there's some inbreeding in play going on here. They got some real simplistic ass motives, which is to find unique things and kill them and take the bones out so you can mount it on the wall and, you know, maybe put the antlers on your space pickup truck. They talk kind of silly, and they bully each other pretty good. We find out that there's some other Hirogen ships that are inbound, that there's supposed to be some sort of a coordinated hunt to take down Voyager as a whole, but there is dissent in the ranks of this specific Hirogen ship that the head hillbilly in charge wants to be the only person with these skeleton trophies, and he thinks that he is going to ruin the fun for the. If I read the situation correctly, that he doesn't want Voyager to get attacked because it'll degrade the value of what will become the skeletons he's pulling out of Seven of Nine and Tuvok.
So, you know, the whole race of hunters obsessed with trophies, you know, you see what they're setting up here. It's very clear. It's also, they apparently love to just like choke things. So I imagine Tuvok really enjoys that part of their background.
That's why they got him in the choke me daddy harnesses, right?
Exactly. And like repeatedly the alpha Hirogen like just decides to start choking Seven of Nine. I think like 3 different times he goes over to do that.
Live your dream.
But yeah, listen, go for it. If that's your fetish, you know, there's worse ones. But the end result here is that Janeway hatches a goofy plan to jailbreak you know, Tuvok and 7-9 for this predicament.
You're right. This is a jailbreak episode, and a shuttlecraft gets destroyed. Wow.
It's man. It's like, why even count anymore? You know? Why do it? Every episode
is a great episode. This has got a little bit of everything.
It's got continuity. It's got space jail. A shuttle named Cochrane blows up.
Again?
This club has everything. Stefan would be pleased. So the end result is that Janeway essentially fires some kind of special beam of MacGuffin-ness at the relay station, and that is supposed to destabilize the quantum singularity and force all of the ships to basically bargain with her to not die. They failed to do so and instead decide to shoot at Voyager, which causes it to destabilize further, which causes them to die. So, bit of a moose on Kathy's part there, you know.
What a dick move. What a dick move. Not only did you completely cripple a fucking array of communication satellites older than, you know, your entire civilization almost, and also cut off your only ability to communicate with your people at home. But you've also dragged, 3 or 4 ships of the native species off to a fate worse than death black hole adventure. And so about that Delta Quadrant next door score.
Well, I mean, even Chakotay cracks wise about it at the end of the episode. He's like recounting the day, and he's like, you know, once again, we've, you know, narrowly avoided certain death at the hands of some bullshit in the Delta Quadrant. Oh yeah, we met a new race of people that just want to fucking kill us. Like, it was a interesting moment where the show acknowledged, like, boy, this sure as hell happens to us a lot, doesn't it? We consistently almost die and make new enemies. That's just what we do here.
We cut back to Harry Kim's stupidest line, but why would anybody in the Delta Quadrant be unhappy with us? And let's look at this series of events from a bigger standard here, or from a bigger picture, right? Voyager is forcing themselves into an alien civilization's computer network to hijack their hardware to accomplish their own ends. They say, hey, stop. We don't like what you're doing. You're abusing our technology. Do not do this. And Voyager's response is to force lightning them through the council, courtesy to Worf this guy, courtesy of 7 of 9. And then Voyager goes back looking for more, continues to fiddle around with this aliens technology. The aliens come out and they say, hey, that's not cool. And they imprison the 2 offending parties, which, granted, we are aware that they are going to cut their bones out and turn them into trophies, which is not cool. But I would still say Voyager's kind of the offending party here. And then Voyager's response, and also the lead alien's like, hey, listen, these guys are prisoners, and we're going to basically execute them for, reasons, which are trespassing and other stuff, even though our real reason is we're just hillbilly hunters. But you guys should get the fuck out of here, because we got ships coming, and if those other ships show up, we're going to hunt all of you guys down. And Janeway's like, no, fuck that. Even though we've been kind of antagonizing this entire situation, we're just going to blow this goddamn thing up and create a black hole and kill everybody and shut down your entire civilization's primary communication method. Fuck you.
So, yeah, fuck.
It's like if an alien race came into the Federation, was like, oh hey, we really like having sex with these replicators, and the Federation's like, can you please quit putting your dick in the replicator? That's like really unsanitary and gross.
That's just not cool. Can we not do that?
And then the alien race, like, while it's like humping the replicators, like, you know what? No, fuck you. I'm gonna create a black hole. I'm gonna kill a bunch of your people. I'm gonna 9/11 you guys. And they're like, well, what the fuck, man? You guys are some real dick aliens. Yeah, interesting dynamics, and yet again, it's Janeway. What'd she say before about we don't get to decide who and how and when we want to observe local laws? Wasn't that a thing that just happened in Random Thoughts?
Yes, that is correct.
So Janeway's saying, we don't get to pick and choose when we pay attention to local customs. We always have to, accept when, fuck it, we're going. So,
I mean, that's basically the end of the episode. They suck the Hirogen into the singularity. They manage to escape. Voyager's intact, but they kind of like take stock of the situation, and they got contact from home. It's the first like tantalizing bit of that they've ever gotten, but they won't be able to do it again because they burn out the whole communication network, 100,000-year-old communication network, with their shenanigans. So good job there. And they didn't get good news. So they got Dear John letters and noticed that all their fucking friends were dead, and it isn't what they hoped it would be. It wasn't what they dreamed it would be. Instead, it's reality is setting in, and they still try and, scavenge for the hope that they can out of it, particularly Chakotay in his hope of putting his D in Janeway's V some point in the future.
Because like you said, while Voyager is still intact, Captain Janeway's engagement is not. And the scene we are quote unquote treated to at the end with Chakotay trying to circle in for the kill. Cringe, man. In case you forgot about Lame House on the Prairie, that was a thing. And he's back. All he's missing here is his fedora.
Well, I think that wraps our discussion of this particular episode, my friend. What do we have next week?
Coming up next, Season 4, Episode 16, Prey. And looks like Tuvok, maybe, and 7 of 9, and they're in the first contact spacesuits. Helping a wounded Hirogen, Janeway finds that his prey, a member of species 8472, has boarded Voyager.
So we continue down this path, but now we got to bring in the space Mewtwo's. Imagine you can't wait for that.
I hate the space Mewtwo's, but I like self-referential episodes. And, as we found out with Chakotay's religion, like certain parts of Voyager are terrible when they are the central focus of an episode. But I gotta admit, I'm interested to see how 8472 is going to behave now that, it's not the primary driving force of an episode.
All right, then. Well, thank you once again to everybody listening to us here at Voyager Please, the Hateful Voyage through the Delta Quadrant. We appreciate anything that you do to spread the word of our snarky gospel when it comes to reviewing Star Trek Voyager. If you want to give us a like or a share on social media, whether that be Facebook or Twitter or Reddit or something like that, or just give us a review on one of the many places our podcast can be found across the internet, or even subscribe to us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/VoyagerPlease. Whatever
but
you do.
Most importantly, just tell a friend you think would enjoy it. Find one of your nerd friends that's into Star Trek or into hating on Star Trek, and make them listen to us, and bring someone who's going to take something out of this into the fold.
Suffering is best done in groups.
Absolutely.
And as we alluded to, the winner of our poll of what the special Patreon episode will be is that we will be reviewing the TNG porn parody as a special gift. We're going to release that to our patrons first. They'll probably have exclusivity over it for like a month, and they'll get to enjoy it. And then after that, we'll release it to everybody. So if you want to get in on that, you'll have plenty of opportunity to do so. And Peter's got some real life stuff coming up. We'll definitely get that in sooner rather than later, though. So don't worry. So until next time, this has been Voyager Please, a Hateful Voyage through the Delta Quadrant. See you soon.